Hey, this is Joe from Home Studio Corner. Today we're going to talk about mixing bass, specifically getting that low end right. For years, I ran a mixing program with Graham Cochran where we mixed a new song every month. And I noticed in the first year or so of that program that his mixes, the bass always seemed deeper than mine. Specifically, it sounded like his bass went down another octave over mine. And we were mixing the same tracks. And I think that word octave is going to help us kind of as we navigate through this, because I eventually kind of figured out what the problem was, and I want to share that with you today. But first, I'm going to throw a couple of numbers in front of you, and I want you to just answer out loud really quickly. How many octaves are between these two frequencies, 40 hertz and 320 hertz? The answer is 3. If we take a look here, an octave is a doubling of frequencies. So from 40 to 80, that's one octave. From 80 to 160 is another octave. And then 160 to 320 is another octave. So technically it's 4 notes spanning 3 octaves. That makes sense? So this is really important. If we think about our ears can hear from 20 hertz up to roughly 20,000 hertz. And this is only talking about a span of what? What's 320 minus 40? 280 hertz. And there is so much frequency information happening here. If you think of an octave like somewhere over the rainbow, somewhere, that's an octave. That's a big jump. My throat goes ugh when I do that because that's a big difference. We're talking 3 octaves here, just going from 40 hertz to 320 hertz. This is where the bulk of the tone of a bass guitar resides. We're not going to talk about the higher frequencies. I've talked about that before. But as far as getting that low, deep sound, we got to make sure what's happening in these frequencies is right. If we were to visualize these as if up and down is volume, so louder volume, quieter volume, then when you record a bass guitar and you listen to the raw tracks, this is kind of what it sounds like. We can hear the 40 and 80 hertz low end, but these low mids typically, in my experience, are louder and more prominent. We hear them over these. This is what I was hearing in my bass tracks when I compared them to Graham's, when I felt like his bass had a lot better low end. When I listened to his mix, though, it sounded more like this. So maybe this or maybe this, I could hear the lows and the mids, and they were playing nicely together. Now, there's a couple of problems with this configuration when these low mids are louder than these deep lows. The first is obvious. The low mids mask the lows. We just can't hear these as well because these are more prominent. The second and probably bigger thing is when you go to put a compressor on this in hopes of tightening things down and maybe bringing out some low end and some punch, these frequencies end up being what trigger the compressor the most. These are the loudest, so this is going to make the compressor clamp down, and what happens? It clamps down on the whole deal, and these lows just get quieter. And you're never going to fix this balance problem with a regular compressor, right? We need to fix that balance. Then we can compress the snot out of it if we want. Compression sounds great on bass, but if these are too loud and you compress, you're just going to turn down the lows even further. Now, how you get there, whether your original raw bass sounds like this and you boost the low end, or it sounds like this and you cut these with some sort of like mid-range, low-mid cut, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter as long as you think in terms of getting these more in balance. We're not talking about getting rid of those entirely. We just want to be able to hear the lows, the low, deep, thick, chest-thumping kick drum frequencies of that bass guitar. And we also want to hear the nice, warm, give me a hug, low mid frequencies, but we want to hear them more in balance to where one is not dominating the other. Now, it's strange to do a video on mixing bass without actually listening to a bass guitar, but I've done plenty of those videos. This, I really wanted to get that point across. Next time you mix bass, listen to what's happening at 40 hertz and 80 hertz and I don't even know where it went over there, 160 and 320, and pay attention there. You can look on the meters and see what's happening, but listen with your ears. Which one's dominating? Chances are this is dominating. Let's balance those out before we move much further. And what you'll find is suddenly your mixes have this big, warm, deep bass sound that you didn't have before. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you like mixing and you haven't for some reason checked out my free 5-step mix guide, it's absolutely free. Go to 5stepmix.com, enter your email, and I'll send it to you. Thanks for watching. See ya.